Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, it's part 3 of our Marionette build. Well, on last week's show, we didn't get as far as what I would have liked to, but that's okay. Stuff happens sometimes in these builds and it's no big deal. So today we're gonna start off with where we were hoping to end off last week, but it just didn't happen. And that's in the construction of the Marionette's arms. So let's head over to the bench. Well, a lot of this is kind of old hat at this point because it's pretty much the same as what we've done here with the legs. There are some slight differences. For starters, the bicep area, I've done this here to match my drawing that I did initially, but these are 1 inch by 1 inch, whereas our forearms here are only 3/4 by 3/4. Now, if the forearms look a little disproportionate, that's because they include the hands. Guys, there are several ways you can do this, and you can make the hands jointed and movable and that sort of thing. And I have 2 issues with that. Number 1 is this is an experimental build and I don't want to get too crazy into details. And as well, I don't think my marionette skills are qualified enough to justify a movable wrist joint. So we're going to do all one piece. So I've cut a 3/16 inch wide dado here to house a spline, just like what we did in our leg joints. And the spline in the bicep area is actually much larger. Hopefully you can see that there. And that is to allow very, very free movement of the arm once we get the coat hanger pin in there. So what do we do from here? Well, what I want to do is I want to sketch out the forearm here on both planes, on both this plane and this plane, to incorporate the forearm and the hand. Now, I don't think we need a video of that. I'm going to get that done and then I'll show you what I came up with when I get that finished. So this is what I came up with. This is the side profile of the hand, and this is kind of looking from the front. Now guys, I'm going to take this over to the scroll saw just to save me some of the carving of this, and I'm going to cut this out in the same fashion as a compound cut. And what that is I will cut one profile, and once I get that profile cut, I'm going to put all the pieces back on, tape them on, flip it 90 degrees, and cut the other profile. And I don't think we need a video of that. I have videos here on the show demonstrating compound cutting. So I'm gonna get this cut and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. All right, well, the cutting is done. I have not looked at this yet. So we're just gonna peel this out of here and see how it looks. Now there will be extra carving to do here, guys, just like we did on the legs. Boy, somebody used a lot of tape on this. Okay, and I don't think that's too bad. It's got kind of a hand and a forearm shape. As I said, it will need more carving. And then once our spline goes in the middle here and connects to our bicep, this will be our arm that will sit on our marionette. So I'm going to cut the other one. I'm going to get these arms shaped. I'm going to get this spline glued in. And once we get that done, then we have to deal with the elbow joint here and how we're going to make that function. All right, it's not perfect, but I have the shaping done of the arms. And the thing is that we don't want the arm to bend back this way, so we're going to leave this flat, but we do want it to bend this way. So I'm going to round off this one corner so that this can rotate inside of here. Now guys, all I'm going to do is I'm going to find a center point, draw a radius here and round it off. Wherever that center point is, that is where we're going to end up drilling our hole. So we should be able to just mark it, place it on the outside like this, and then drill our hole for our pin. We're going to have to trim off some of this spline here on the front of our forearm just to make it look a little neater. But other than that, I think the arms are fine. And once we get that done, just like always, I'll show you what I ended up with. Well, we have both of our arms done. They do not bend backwards, but they do bend forwards. I think I would like them to bend a little further up, so I'm going to have to modify our dado here to kind of slope it up this way to give us a little more range of motion in that arm. So I'll get that done, but for now I want to look at how to attach the arms. And speaking of range of motion, the shoulder joint is one of those joints that it can do this, it can do this. It has a lot of range of motion. So for that reason, I've made some more of these kind of coat hanger U staples. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 2 of them here in the middle into the shoulder joint. And then in opposite directions, I'm going to drill 2 of them into the top of our bicep. And that will hold this in place and will hopefully give me the range of motion that I'm looking for. So I'm going to get those marked out, drilled out, and we'll see how it looks once it's actually attached. All right, and I think we have pretty good range of motion here for the arms. I'm not really happy with how far these elbows bend, or how far they don't bend, I should say. So I will be fixing that up. So there you go. There is where we're at this point in time. We're coming along really well here. I'm quite pleased with how this is working out. Well, I did some messing around with the elbow joints to see if I could get them to bend any further, and I notched out our dado a little further on a 45, kind of trying to get more motion. And then something else got in the way, so I ended up having to shave something else down. And then I realized that the shoulder here, this is kind of weird to say, but the shoulder of our elbow joint on our forearm is one of the major parts that's getting in the way. And honestly, before I glued in this spline, I should have shaped that then. So at this point in time, I'm not willing to mess around too much with this arm. I'll just have to put up with this range of motion. And I mean, I guess it's fine. It still works as intended. I just would have rather have a little more motion on it. But in the grand scheme, I'm still really happy with the way this whole thing is working out. So at this point, we're missing a major component of our marionette fella here, and that would be his head. Now, everything else up until now, guys, has been maple, but I'm going to make the head out of this 2-inch by 2-inch chunk of basswood. It's actually 2 by 2 by 4 inches long. I've made the head 2.5 inches long to coincide with all of the 2.5 inch long head measurements that we've made all the way along in our drawing to make this fit. And I've left this bottom 1.5 inches for the neck. Now guys, I've kind of sketched out where I want the head and sketched out a profile. And we're gonna start off by hogging this out over at the bandsaw. I really don't think that a video of this is going to help anybody. This is not about carving a head, and I'm just gonna muddle my way through it and see how we make out. So I'm gonna get the head carved, and then once I get that done, I'm gonna come back and see ya, and we're gonna see if we can't get it attached to our marionette. Well, this is the head that I've carved. I'm no carver. You know what, it's a puppet, but this is the thing that nightmares are made out of. And what I've done is right here in our shoulder in the center, I have drilled a 1-inch Forstner bit hole deep enough to sit this in. So what I want to do is I want to center this in this hole. We're going to set it so that it looks right, and then I'm going to drill right through to be able to install a pin to hold it. And that will give us a slight little bit of movement side to side. Not a lot, but we don't really want a lot. So let me get that mounted and I will show you what we're looking at. And there we go. This is our marionette base, I guess we'll call it. Guys, there is some decorating that has to go with this, but I think the next thing that we need to concentrate on here is the rigging, and that is a whole new ball game altogether. Well, for the rigging, we need some way to attach it to our marionette. And for that, we have some of these 1/2-inch eye bolts. They're just small little eye bolts here. And we need to attach them to certain parts of our marionette. That's what's going to help him to control. So we're going to go by one in each wrist, and that will give us the arm movement. We're going to go one in each knee. That will give us the leg movement of being able to raise the legs. We're going to go one in the top of his head. A lot of controls that I've seen have one in each shoulder, but I don't know that I want to do that because my initial thought was that his head was going to control the weight. But where I have partial movement here of the head, I'm kind of wondering if we shouldn't have something in his shoulders to give him flexibility to kind of twist or move. So now that I've said that, you know what? I think I'm going to put one in each shoulder. And as well, we need one in his butt, right down here in the lower end, so that we can have him bend over and still have his back supported. So I'm going to drill using a pin vise, a very small drill, handheld. I'm going to drill the holes and install all of our eye bolts. And once we get that done, then we're going to need to look at what type of controller we want to make. Well, the eye bolts are all drilled in, and I will just say that the pin vise did not work. I actually twisted off one of the eye bolts, and in reading the back here, it requires a pilot hole of 1/16. Considering this is hard maple, it was very easy to twist it off in a hole that was undersized, but we do have all of our eye bolts now mounted around our marionette. So now we need to consider our controller. And guys, reading this book, I'm shocked at how many different styles and types of controllers there are. But in general, they all seem to have the same sort of layout, just with different types of controls. Some of them have removable bars, some of them do not. So what I've done is a basic airplane control. That's what this is called here, from what I understand. And I have placed a couple eye bolts here in the front. This will house our arms. I have one eye bolt here in the back underside. That will be for his butt area. I have a cross piece here and joined it with a half-lap joint across my airplane. This will house his shoulders, a shoulder on each side and his head in the middle. As well, I have this section right here. Now, I kind of toyed with this, what to do with it, but I've made it removable. This is for his legs, and the legs will be able to be tilted and moved to get him to walk. And then it can easily be sat back on there while you're just kind of operating, say, arms or whatever, and you don't want to mess around with legs. And then for storage, I've placed like a wing nut and a washer on here for storage to keep it all together. Whether or not it works is another story. So the next thing we want to look at is what type of string do we use for this? So guys, let's look at that next. Now, when choosing the string for your marionette, you want something that isn't going to stretch. Now, as far as the visibility goes, that is personal preference. There are some guys that like the strings to be very thick and very pronounced so that when they're in some kind of a production, you can definitely see that it's a marionette. There are other people that like to hide the strings. So I have chosen paracord. Now, guys, while this is extremely thick string, this is not what I want to use. I want to use the interior strings. I don't know if you know this, but if you pull back the jacket of a piece of paracord inside, what gives it its strength is all of these smaller strings. Now guys, these don't stretch. They're very, very strong and they're thin. So this is what I want to use. It's really personal preference what you want to use. I don't think there's any right or wrong as long as there's no stretch. So how do you go about stringing your marionette? Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to establish the height. And when I'm talking about the height, what I'm talking about is your controller or your controls here. You want your forearm to be pretty much horizontal. And this is the control point of your marionette so that you will have control of it with your forearm horizontal to your body or perpendicular to your body. So this is the height of your marionette controls. So they're very personalized. So what we're going to do with our forearm here out horizontal, we are going to connect our two shoulder strings from our controller down to our marionette at the shoulder points with the marionette in the normal standing position. Once we get that done, that establishes the height of our marionette and we can just carry on with the stringing from there. Okay, so I've decided that I don't like the eye bolts in the controller. I don't like tying the knots. It was awkward. There's no adjustability. It was just a mess. So I'm going with a 3-slot system. And what I've done is in the end of each arm of the controller, I have placed 3 slots. One at the end, about a 1/2 inch in, one here on each side. These are 3/8 of an inch in and 1.25 inches from the end. And what you'll do is essentially once you get your string lined up, that string will come into this end slot and then you can string it like this. And eventually you will end up with this, and this is nice and secure. There's no knots to tie. Eventually you can adjust it if you choose incorrectly on your string choice and it stretches. You can adjust it. If a string breaks, you can easily replace it. So I'm not a big fan of the knots, so we're not going to go with that. We're going with this 3-slot system, and we're going to, as I said, string the height of the marionette using the shoulders as the reference point. Okay, and by wrapping them like this, it's a lot easier for me to do this. And again, like I said, a lot better adjustability. So now that we have the shoulder height established, and I'm happy with the way it's sitting, we're going to do the rest of the joints. His hands, his knees, his head, his butt, and we'll do them all in the same fashion with the exception of his arms. His arms, we just sit him here, his arms are going to be attached to these front eye bolts because they are essentially controlled by pulling on the strings, and these eye bolts here will give us good access. So other than that, we can get him stringed up and I'll show you what he looks like when we get that done. All right, and here we have our marionette pretty much strung. So the leg control, which is this one right here that comes out separately, this of course gets him to do his stepping. Now, I'm no marionette puppeteer at all, so this is something that takes practice, guys. But you can see that with these controls, he can move his legs up and down no problem. And when he's just standing, you can just sit your controls back on that bolt to have him sit there. His arms, again, can move as well. So you can take the strings and make both arms. Oh no, arm down. So obviously we're going to need to put some CA glue on the knots of these strings, which I will do, but we can control the arms here like this. If we need to have him bend over, of course he can bend over just by pulling back on the butt string. So all in all, I think he's turning out pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with the way the strings are connected, except for his left hand, which came undone on me. So Believe it or not, I'm going to undo everything here, and he needs some decorations. And we're going to decorate him up, and I'll come back to you and show you what we ended up with, right? And unfortunately, that is all the time we have once again for this week. Guys, I was thinking I was going to finish the actual Marionette this week, and then I realized although the actual build itself is pretty much complete, the controller is done, I showed you guys about the stringing of it, all the joints are finished with the exception of they're not glued in. I realized that there's actually a lot more to do here with this particular unit, as we still need to decorate it. There's still painting to do. We're going to do some wood burning. We got to add some hair. We got to add some kind of clothing and that sort of thing. And I thought it could be a fun process to bring to you on the show here. So that would kind of complete the entire build. So not only do we have the woodworking aspect of it, but we would also have, I guess, the decorating or the final process of getting this thing to look like an actual figure instead of this weird jointed wooden thing. Either way, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to do that on next week's show and hopefully bring this 4-part series now to a conclusion. If you haven't already, if you found any part of today's show interesting, fun, informative, you know what, why not like and subscribe to the channel? Guys, we have an amazing audience base here, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the content today. This one's been a lot of fun, a bit of an adventure. I hope you're able to pull something positive out of this series. I hope you're going to give this a try yourself and make your own marionette at home. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.